Wow, it's bright up here. Hi, everybody. As you heard, I'm Leo Zimborski, president and founder of pH Prescription. Water doctors recommend. We didn't start out that way. I started out as a third-generation plumber. My grandfather's plumbing license in New Jersey is number 2 in the state. He got it in 1931. So we've been working with water for 3 generations our whole career. And my father had took over the wheels from my grandfather and so on and so forth. But by the time I came around in the 80s, we were dealing with a lot of problems. We were dealing with toxicities, toxic wells, acid rain from all the chemical plants like DuPont, Monsanto, and places like that, fuel tanks leaking. Stuff that's happening today, like East Palestine, Ohio, with a train derailment, and the vinyl chloride. We're dealing with problems in Maui from the benzenes and all the PFAS, the forever plastics that they're using on the fire retardant foams. So what we did was we made this system that could remove all these toxins. And I did all this research and homework because just your regular home filtering system that you're going to find for most water companies is going to be a water softener and a reverse osmosis system. That's the standard of care for most water filtration companies. But we had to take it one step further because I had the health department on my rear end testing everything that I did, right? So I did that, and I'm on the forefront. I'm the one out there installing this equipment, rebedding this equipment, me and a few of the guys that worked with me, my brother and a few other guys. And what happens? I'm the one that is face-to-face with all these toxins that are accumulated in these tanks. So I had developed a health problem, and I had problems breathing, I had problems with my heart. When I was 40, I ended up in the hospital with AFib tachycardia to the point that I flatlined. So thank God for modern medicine, right, which I think is a horrible name for it, because they were there to give me 6 different heart medications to put me on that turned me into a zombie, and it made me very, very unhealthy. And then from the exposure to this water, modern medicine wasn't doing it for me, wasn't making me feel any better. So my experience and success in water filtration and research to find out how to get rid of these toxins out of the water, I had to figure out how to get them out of me. And that was my next move. So we developed a water system that not only removed all these toxins, but was an electron donor. It would donate something back to the body. We have a drinking system out there now, and it's putting out about negative 200 millivolts. Normally, most home drinking systems put around negative 600. But what that electron is, it's coming from hydrogen. And the hydrogen is the most powerful element on the face of this earth. And the hydrogen is what's giving the body, and it's getting rid of the cytotoxins, and it's just donating that electron to the impaired electrons and the free radicals that are running rapid in our body. So we developed a system, and that's when I started pH Prescription. It was about 15, 16 years ago. That's when I had my heart incident in the hospital. Now, this is a partner of mine. I met him about 13 years ago, Dr. Nathan Bryan. And Dr. Nathan Bryan, he's a nitric oxide guru, and he does a lot of stuff with, he was helping start out Human N and a few other companies, and he has his own products now, N101. But he said something that was so profound to me, I had to share it with everyone. He says, people get sick for 2 reasons and 2 reasons only. 1, their body's missing an essential nutrient that they need to perform, and 2, their body's exposed to a toxin, right? You just heard about all the EMF toxins. Well, your body's exposed to other toxins in water, and we get exposed to toxins in air. So using clean water free of toxins such as chlorine and fluoride and repeat with essential nutrients, the profound effects on health will be amazing. And I couldn't agree with him more. And so we actually started working together and becoming very good friends. So now there's a difference between clean water and healthy water, right? There's a lot of water filtration companies out there today doing clean water. And it's easy to purify water down to absolute. But it's really hard to get back the things into water that are very important. So clean water would be getting rid of things like benzenes, like we just talked about in Maui, things like vinyl chloride we talked about in East Palestine, Ohio, THMs, which is a gas product that comes off of chlorine and chloramine. Every time you take a shower, you're breathing in these trihalomethanes. We all know chlorine's in our tap water. Chloramine is a chlorine byproduct that has a different angle, and it's very hard to remove with just basic water filters. Ammonia, pesticides, herbicides, pharmaceutical residue, and even heavy metals, right? We're dealing with lead. Look at Flint, Michigan. Mercury, chromium-6, Aaron Brockovich story, arsenic, fluoride, and aluminum. So healthy water begins with clean water, and then we remineralize it. And we remineralize it with magnesium. And magnesium is important because most people are deficient in magnesium, and it'll help hydrate the cell. The problem is if you just take clean water and you drink it, and there's no minerals in the water, it's a solvent. It's going to come in and it's going to demineralize you. So we want to put something back in the water to get the water into the cell. The important part is the water has to hydrate the cell, penetrate the cell, force the toxins and waste out of the cell, and then it's like a cycle. It constantly goes over and over and over again, right? So when healthy water, it begins with clean water, but we remineralize it with magnesium, and then we found out that the driving factor for the healing, I would say, for the cellular repair is the molecular hydrogen. The molecular hydrogen, again, is the electron donor. It acts just like an antioxidant. It knocks out free radicals, and it focuses on cytotoxins. And the byproduct of this is alkaline water. And before, we were focused on the alkaline part, and we were looking in the wrong direction. It was the magnesium that was so much more important. I can make hydrogen water without alkalinity, but with this drinking system I'm talking about, makes some alkalinity because we're using magnesium. Now, the only way filtration of this level can be achieved is by using the highest quality filtration medias in our proprietary formulas. We can filter out the 99.99% of toxic elements. When James just walked off the stage, he has our home filtration system. He has our drinking system. And he said, if I would have known how good the home filtration system would have done, I would have done it first. Because every day that you get into a shower, you're exposing yourself to these elements, right? Now, everyone in here, I guarantee you, is either drank out of one of our systems or one of these other systems over here, or you've drank bottled water, or you have some choice of water that you drink at home, or that you buy in a store, right? And why do you do that? Because you can taste it. You know that, oh God, this tap water tastes awful, right? This chlorine tastes awful, or this well water tastes awful. Well, if your skin could taste, nobody would have took a shower today. Right? That's a big deal. But your skin can't taste, so you just, I'll be okay. My skin's a barrier. It's not. It all has to do with molecular weight. So I'm going to get into, let me see here, let's go back. It's got to do with molecular weight, just like we talk about molecular hydrogen, right? The molecular weight of things are so super important. I had a slide on it, I didn't add it, so I'm going to explain it. So anything under 3,000 mole, or Dalton weight is what we're going to call it, anything under 3,000 will enter the skin. Anything under 750 will enter deep into the dermis, which is in the danger zone. Anything under 150 mole enters the bloodstream. What do you think the molecular weight of chlorine is? And we all know we have chlorine in our tap water. That's just one of the chemicals. It's only 35.4. So one 10-minute shower is equivalent to drinking 8 glasses of tap water every time you take a 10-minute shower. And some people are like, I take a 30-minute shower. Well, times that by 3, right? So that's when you talk about molecular weights, and other people think that we're pervious to other things. Well, we know from the patches from like Nicoderm and all these things that things can pass through our skin. But the molecular weight of something like fluoride, that is pretty toxic. It's a controversial subject, but it's very toxic material, only has a molecular weight of 19. And most VOCs are in the 20s and the 30 range. So you think about it, I mean, a lot of things I just talked about have very small molecular weights. One of the things with the biggest molecular weights that's becoming a problem is forever plastics, the PFOFs and PFOFs and all that. It has a molecular weight of about 500. Lead has a molecular weight of about 200. So it's getting into your dermis pretty good. The PFOFs are staying on the surface area, but can cause skin irritation and issues like that. But when you're drinking it, it becomes a bigger problem. So when you're drinking the water, let me explain this. People ask me all the time, what's the difference between point of use, which is what's coming into your house, or point of entry, and point of use, which is going into you, anything you're drinking and cooking with, right? So I go across this all the time. I say, how many of you have ever swam in the ocean? And how many of you swam in a lake? probably almost everyone in here that swims, okay? Would you drink it? No, right? You wouldn't drink it. Well, most of the things in lakes and oceans that are bad for you, oceans got all the salt problem, but they all have microorganisms and things that can get into you and make you sick right away. You wouldn't want to drink out of a stream or something like that unless you knew it was really clean. Well, that's what we do with our drinking system. We take this whole house filtration system. I got a little laser here I can show people. See those 2 tanks there way on the left? There's 2 tanks right there on the left. This is our standard of care whole home filtration system. If you want a softener, we can add it. In some cases, you need it because some places the water's so hard, and some iron and different things softener has purposes for, but not all the time. If you ever swam in a hot spring, what I've noticed, you swim in a hot spring, you get out, it's the hardest water you'll ever be in, and I've never had somebody say, oh God, the water's so hard it sucks. No, they get out of the water, especially people I'm from the Northeast, I'm from Jersey, and people come down here to Florida, and they're like, wow, this water's awful, because it's got so much chemicals in it. And they're oxidizers, right? So tank 1 out of our 2-tank system, is the one way on the left, is going to remove anything that's a volatile organic compound, meaning a VOC, or a chlorine or a chloramine, and it's going to remove pesticides, herbicides, PFOS, forever plastics. Tank 2 is really cool because it's got a much more fragile material in it, and it can remove everything tank 1 does. So if tank 1 misses that 1%, tank 2 is going to grab it. It's going to be non-detected by tank 2. But tank 2 is designed to remove heavy metals. And in that category, we're dealing with lead, mercury, fluoride, aluminum. It's going to be removing those things as well. So now, going through all the plumbing in the house, up to your bathroom, your tub, your shower, your kitchen sink, your laundry, you're going to be protected from all these oxidative stress chemicals. A lot of companies I was one of them, we were doing a lot of water softeners back in the 80s and 90s. And we were doing it because we were told that it's going to make the hot water heaters last longer. It's going to make the faucets last longer. Well, when you change calcium and minerals for sodium, you're changing the properties. And I'll tell you what happens is sodium's more conductive than minerals. So that's why on boats they have those anodes on the outdrives and everything, so that the sodium won't attack them, especially here in Florida. But sodium was attacking hot water heaters, and they were lasting just as long with softeners as without, because the sodium was eating them up quicker. So that we found out that if we just take out the things that cause oxidative stress to not only ourselves, to our plumbing and appliances, our plumbing appliances will last longer, because we're not dealing with it. And what is oxidative stress? What happens when we oxidize? We get wrinkles, we get gray hair, we get cataracts. I'm 56 years old. I actually can say, I wish I had a picture of when I was 40, when I was sick. I look better now than I did then, and that's 16 years ago. And then once we get over to, trying to hit this one here, we have the drinking system, which is point of use that goes under the kitchen sink. Now, the one thing this system does, other than add minerals back, we don't want to add minerals to the whole house. We don't want to add hydrogen in the whole house because it can cause damage to things for different reasons. We want to only mineralize the water you're drinking, you're cooking with, and you're making ice with. So this remineralizing system is putting about 100 parts per million of magnesium back in the water, putting about 1 ppm to 1.2 ppm of hydrogen in the water, which is amazing. And it's also removing microorganisms. Remember I said we can't swim in the lake or the ocean? It's because those microorganisms will make us sick. Well, they can't get through. You get a boil water alert, you're covered. You're not going to be drinking anything. Now, if your kids are drinking out of the tub and stuff like that, that's another problem, and we have a filter for that as well. We could talk about that later. It's called ultrafilter, and we also have UV lights, which people probably heard of, that can get rid of that. So, moving on, we just talked about point of entry and point of use, and this ultimate pairing system keeps everything from getting into your home and getting into you. We have another product I made called the Quad Vortex. And a quantum physicist from Stanford had drew this on a napkin for me and dared me to make it, and I did, and it was very expensive, and I almost went bankrupt. But making these vortices, making these vortices here, the molds were almost $1 million, but they're a Fibonacci pattern. They implode from large to skinny, and then they explode from skinny to large. And in the center, there's 12 neodymium magnets that are about 120,000 Gauss that tears apart the bonds. So all we were looking to achieve, we're not filtering anything with this, was to break down long chain molecules. And when we're breaking down long-chain molecules, our filtration system works better. Your ice is clear. The water feels softer. You get less calcium buildup on your showers. And it never needs to be replaced. It's a one and done. No moving parts, right? And we use a Fibonacci pattern to spin it. I actually normally have a setup where I run dye through it, and you can see the dye spinning, and it's pretty amazing. And I want to touch on something else. We're working on a project, we've been working on it for about 10 years, it's called Aquapellis, right? It's the future of water technology. It's unbelievably beyond the future of water technology. Aquapellis, we built a system that makes water absolute. And when I mean absolute, we take everything out of it. We take the water down to about 18.3 mega ohms, which is very, very, very clean. And then there's still gas left in water, that's all that's left. So when you clean water that clean, you get acidic water because there's still CO2 in it. So then we degas it. We pull all the CO2 gas out, we pull all the nitrogen out of the water, we pull all the gases out of the water. Now the water is ultra pure, 7.0 pH, and you're like, well, Leo, that's really, really good, but it would demineralize me and cause a lot of problems. Now it's meant to be rebuilt. And this is a shower system, a bath system, a tub system. We have all kinds of ways, a foot bath. So now we're putting back in the nutraceuticals that are good for you. And you can pick them from the touchscreen of a button in your shower. You can go in there and say, hey, I want an energy shower today. I want to go to sleep. It's got 6 different sleeping elements in it. And then you pick the hydrogen levels. If you really up your hydrogen level, if you put a lot of hydrogen in the body, and we're putting like 10 ppm transdermally through the body, and hydrogen, remember, is the smallest molecule. It's only 1. And when it's bound with water, it's 2. It passes right through your skin, your blood-brain barrier, and hydrogen's amazing. And everybody's ever got out of one of my hydrogen showers felt like doing a cartwheel. You just feel really good. And it slows down your heart rate because it makes your body run more efficient. So we've had all kinds of studies done on this, and we're doing studies coming up on inflammation reduction, had great success with some people with diabetes, and reducing their blood sugar because it made their blood not sticky anymore, and it made everything absorb better, so it made the insulin more available. But hydrogen is probably one of the best transdermal applications you can use, and it's hitting you in the head and the toes at the same time and energizing your body. The benefits of molecular hydrogen is it's a selective antioxidant. It neutralizes only cytotoxins, like I said, and free radicals, the cells that cause damage to your body. It also stimulates the production of your body's own antioxidant system, resulting in the production of more protective enzymes, antioxidants, and glutathione. Using hydrogen water therapy, such as Aquapellis, will improve your health, increase energy levels, and mental capacity. They say drinking 1 glass of hydrogen water is equivalent to 100 milligrams of caffeine in mental clarity. But you're not speeding yourself up, which is really cool. And I'm going to leave you with this before we do questions. Dr. Alex Carroll is pretty amazing. He actually did a study, and he kept chicken heart cells alive for like 27 years because he says it's merely the fluid which it floats, which degenerates. Renewing this fluid at intervals gives the cell on something which to feed, and so far as we know, the pulsation of life can go on forever. And there it is there, I'm sorry. And all of our products are NSF, Water Quality Association, made in the USA. Our filtering medias are NSF and WQA approved. These are some of our brands. H2 True is a hydrogen tablet. Aquapellis is what I was just talking about. And if you have any questions, here's some information here. Let me see. There we go right there. There's the conference. There's the QR code, and ready for questions.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a seat.
All right.
Chat for a bit.
Yeah.
Who knew water was so complex, right? Not like 50, 60 years ago, you turn on the tap, our parents did that, pop the cup underneath that and go. But I think what I say is you need to make sure you're eating clean food, breathing clean air, and drinking clean water. Exactly. So people get overwhelmed at what they need to do. If you haven't done those 3, that's what you teach your clients first, and obviously you do it with your family. So remove the pesticides as best you can. Even if you get in organic, still clean your food. Obviously air filters for the home, fantastic. Make sure there's not mold. And then taking care of the water that goes in your body. Since you are predominantly water, and we know we want to be drinking about, for most people, 8 to 12 glasses of water per day. want to make sure that is actually cleansing and revitalizing the body. So just a couple things that I wanted to touch on that were interesting to me is you're remineralizing the water, which we think is obviously very important. You're using magnesium. This has always been, there's been, I don't know, maybe no less than a half a dozen companies that have approached me to promote alkaline-based water machines. I've never done it because most of them, it does alkalize the water, but they're using calcium, and the forms of calcium could actually end up in the arteries, could stiffen the arteries as well. I'm not quite there yet on that. I'd love to see how it's taken up by the cells. You chose magnesium. Sure. We do know that most people are deficient in magnesium. The form of magnesium is what, and what does it bring the alkaline level to?
It depends on how much we put in, and the contact time. So we can make it as low as 8.5, and we can take it all the way up as high as 9.7.
And we get to choose this as the consumer, or do you set that?
We can set it up that way before we ship it out.
I see.
It's a choice. So we're not using bicarbonates like they would use with calcium. We're always using magnesium. So I had a few doctors tell me if anybody ever got alkalosis from my water, they'd love to meet them, because the body will absorb this magnesium quickly into the bloodstream and alkaline the blood, like and keep the blood at 3.65 to 3.4. I mean, sorry. 7.65, yeah. So we need to keep the blood's pH up, but then the acids of the body and the stomach still seem to work perfectly fine. So we're not neutralizing that.
Yeah, from what I've seen, and I completely agree with that, is that under 10 or 10.5, for your water, but you're just not consuming that necessarily at the meal. Is what I've seen is to be one of those. And even like a buffered magnesium, it's probably not the right time with it anyways to be taking it in with food. So what about the trace minerals? Should we still add drops to that? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm not, just recognize one thing. The water is not giving you your daily supply of minerals.
Correct, yeah.
So we're just putting enough minerals in there for good cellular hydration, right? So that water, it's not going to be so solvent and just strip the body of its minerals. So we're putting a very, very basic amount. So if you were to measure in total dissolved solids, you're going to be measuring about 170 to 100 ppm. Which is a very little bit amount. Most tap water is like 300 to 400. I've seen tap water over 1,000. Anything over 100, you start to taste salt. So we kept the TDS down, but we kept it up high enough for good cellular hydration.
And is it a magnesium salt that you're using?
No, it's actually an elemental magnesium that it runs through, and that's what makes the hydrogen. The hydrogen gases off the magnesium. I mean, we have hydrogen generators that make hydrogen water as well, but with PMF membranes. But this mineral is it's genius. Because you have this filtration system that's stripping everything out, and then you got this mineral that's so excited to be working in this solvent water, and it's letting off magnesium and hydrogen at the same time, and the filter will last like 18 to 24 months before it needs to be replaced.
That's great. Yeah. So I have a little bit of experience with this in my Boston clinic. We had a storage room that we used for all of our towels and all of our supplies. And we had, just massive units for the reverse osmosis and everything there. It's amazing to see how that size is beginning to shrink.
Oh, yeah.
And I spoke with Catherine. She said it's getting even smaller, into the future as well, which is fantastic. I have one more geek out question. I apologize, and then we'll kind of get back to the show. But I've studied this Fibonacci sequence.
Yes.
And I love math, which is really geeky as well. But the IHP symbol, which a lot of people don't know, is a Fibonacci sequence.
I noticed that.
It's built off of the aloe plant. We basically use the outline of an aloe plant. So Fibonacci sequence, at least in mathematics, it can be used for harmonics, it can be used for frequencies. In math, it's basically the sum of the two preceding numbers equals the whole of the next number in line. I wasn't able to get the full breakdown. How in the world are you using Fibonacci sequences in water?
You ever hear of a scientist, Bill Tiller?
I don't believe so.
He was a quantum physicist from Stanford. He's pretty well known. He's wrote a lot of books on quantum physics, and he's finished some of Albert Einstein's work. And I got the opportunity to meet him at a conference in Phoenix, and he was in my crowd. This was over 10 years ago, and he stood up and he had a question. And I said, Bill, what's your question? It's got to be a good one. And he says, well, you made a mistake on slide 3. And I said, okay, Bill, if you said I made a mistake on slide 3, I probably did. And he says, you misspelt metals 3 times. And the night before, it was about heavy metals, the conference, I wrote the slide, and I'm dyslexic. I'm severely dyslexic, but it's been one of my superpowers, but at the same time, it's been some kryptonite to me when I'm writing. Sure. And so I spelled it in a way that it was correct to spell check, but it wasn't correct to the meaning of what I was trying to do. But we became friends, and he said, if you want to learn more and meet me, take me and my wife to lunch tomorrow. So I took Bill and his wife to lunch, and he drew this Fibonacci pattern on a napkin. And he said, if you can make a water filter that can be in an hourglass, and it can go with a Fibonacci pattern, like you said, you take the last two numbers and you put them together. Yeah. And he says, I would like to see an hourglass imploding and exploding. And in the center, we were talking about putting a Rodin coil in there, so we put frequencies on it. And then instead, we just went with neodymium magnets, and so we could break the bond and help and break it down. And we spin left-handed going in and right-handed coming out, so it's two different vortices that we had to make. And it was a 6-way mold that was very expensive to make. And the guy that was working with me and sharing the cost, he goes, you sure this is going to work? Before we spent the money. But that's how we came up with the Fibonacci sequence, and we had to sit down with two different architects to draw it, because they were having a hard time figuring out the pitch and the angle, and I kept shedding the drawings back to Bill, and he says, no, it's off a little bit by this, and he kept tweaking it to the point. And then we had it tested. Yeah. We brought it up to NMR Analytics up in Connecticut, and we were testing the NMR of the water to see what the cluster size was. And the water coming in was 128 hertz, and coming out of the quad vortex, it was 57 hertz. And then the drinking system I was talking about was down to 41 hertz. So it was almost 4 molecules. So we knew we were breaking the long chain bonds down by spinning the water and then hitting it with the magnets real hard.
And the vortexes, you're helping to restructure the water.
Exactly.
That's a big thing with reverse osmosis. If you use reverse osmosis, you do want, in a way, to restructure it. There's a couple different devices I use at my house. Obviously, you can create your own vortex. But what's the machine that you have that actually that creates the vortex and the Fibonacci sequence?
Yeah, it's called the water management system. It's out there on my table.
Is that the whole house?
It's for the whole house,
okay.
Yeah. And we put it right before the whole house system, because by putting it before the whole house system and breaking those bonds down, the media is a very fine media, and it grabs these things out of the water by absorbing. And when you have a long chain molecule, it tries to pull through the media. So when we break the bond down smaller, we have higher reduction of toxins. So we get better quality of water, and then the water feels soft, and you don't get that calcium deposit all over your glass. So it makes a huge difference without using a water softener. That was the total
I love it. It's
understanding
fantastic.
of it.
Good. All right, we're going to get to some normal questions.
Okay.
Right now, let's see. Hopefully they're less complicated, actually, for my mind to understand here. So let's see. We are going to pull up the questions now. It says sign in required, so I'll ask another one of mine. You'll have to just bear with us until we move up these next questions. So one of the things with water filters, there's so many water filters, right? You've got everything from like the Life Straw to all these different devices. Why would someone go from their current unit to yours? Like, what extra advantage would you be getting? Now, of course, we just talked about the Fibonacci sequence. We talked about using magnesium, maybe versus calcium. But what are some of the other advantages that would make someone move from their current unit to what you offer?
Well, it's a very good question. I get asked it almost every day, and I learn so much about other people's products because everybody's wanting me to compare them, right?
Sure.
And the one thing is that we went to great lengths. Most of these other water companies weren't cleaning up toxic spills. They weren't going out there and going after things that were really, really bad. Like in Maui, if you Google it, it'll say water filtration systems won't work. Because I know people are going to go out and buy like a Brita water pitcher or something like that, and it's going to be far short the grace of what it would take to fix it, and they don't want people toxifying themselves. But we've dealt with problems that, we have multiple systems, and we have test bibs between the systems, and we know when there's a failure between the systems, but it's not a failure at the end, so you're still getting safe water, and then we switch those tanks around and put a new tank in. I mean, there's things that need to be done by a professional to make sure that you're safe from these toxins. But I've taken that same knowledge that I've earned over the last 39 years, and I applied it to just my basic everyday home filtration system. Water, like you said, is so complex. A lot of people with wells were like, man, I wish I had city water again. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad you don't. It's easier for me to treat a well in most cases than it is for city water, because some of these toxins that are in water are very, very hard to get out. And so we have to use very fragile, more expensive material to do it. So if you look at the pricing of some companies will be way down here in pricing. I'm not naming any. And you'll see some way up here. And I'm closer to the way up here guys, but I'm using the Bentley of products, right? To buy the products I can get a lot cheaper in other places. But I use the very high end, because we put out results. Sure. And when people are testing our water, we want to know that we met the goal. And so that's one of the reasons that definitely work with us if you can. And another reason is, too, most companies are doing one of two things, like I said, and you brought it up, too, is that they're either cleaning the water or a lot of people are making healthy water with really, really cheap pre-filtration. So if I'm gonna give you an example, like ionized water, and you make hydrogen in water and with the ionization, and you do all that, people ask me all the time, how's my, I'm not gonna name a company, but they say, how's this type of water? And I say to them, well, it's relative to the water you're using. If you're ionizing a good quality water, it could be very good. But if you're ionizing water that's full of heavy metals and chemicals and problems, the problem is you're not getting that stuff out first. So when I first developed my own health problem, I went out and bought one of those expensive ionizers because I heard all these wonderful things about it. And then I started testing it because I have my own lab. And I was seeing that the fluoride level went up 30% from using an ionizer, because fluoride is in the heavy metal family, and when it's ionizing, it goes to the side of the plate that it thinks it's a mineral, right? So it's going to be using it as a mineral, where what's going down the drain is just water, and as the acidic water. So the OH negative, which is the alkaline water, and then you got the H positive, which is the acidic water. So when you're ionizing, these heavy metals are being increased, and I've seen as much as 30%.
Wow.
So what I had to do was I had to purify it first, and you can't ionize purified water. So then I had to inject Himalayan salt into it that I knew was safe and clean and not done with glycerin, because they blast it in some places. And then I ionized it. So one of the alkaline water companies is using my method of that right now, making a product called Alkaline 88 out in Phoenix, Arizona. And they're using a big reverse osmosis system. They're using an injection system that's putting Himalayan salt into the water, and then they're ionizing it at a pH of 8.8, and it works perfect. So, wow. But to do that for the average consumer, you're going to spend $7,000, $8,000 on equipment. So I designed a system for $1,500 that will do the exact same thing, and it does it all in one small compact unit that fits under your sink, and you don't need, all this cabinet space.
Yeah, that's great. One of the nice things is, too, with the day and age that we're living in right now, is the ability to test essentially everything is democratized. So we use a couple at-home water testing companies, and you can do before and afters. And I agree with you that it's better to have that well water and then filter that, but the only problem is that it depends who your neighbors are, what might be seeping into the soil, and like all these different things, they do matter. So I agree with you, but you just can't trust. Your city sends out, here's the contaminants we found in the water, here's the acceptable levels, but they only test for a couple hundred toxins. And we know that there's 100,000. Maybe in the soil there's a couple, 20,000, but they're testing for 200.
I'll give you a great example. One of the things, you hear about, you can go on any news network and look it up, pharmaceuticals in our tap water, right? And you'll see it. But it cracks me up when I go on it. You're never going to see it from your city. Your city is never going to talk about the pharmaceuticals in your tap water. Right. Well, I'm just north of Palm Beach, right, in the Palm Beach area. And I got a lot of clients in Palm Beach. And they will spend money on testing. They want to see what's really going on. And I had this one woman, she wanted 3 of her properties tested, one in New York, one in Palm Beach, one in New Hampshire. So we did the pharmaceutical panel, and the pharmaceutical panel is around $3,000. Oh, wow. And on each property. So the #1 pharmaceutical in Palm Beach was testosterone.
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that.
The #2 was estrogen. Huh. Well, it was funny because I was with the builder of the property, and he goes, testosterone? My doc says I'm low in T, right? So he takes a big glass of water. I said, well, Tony, #2 is estrogen. He goes, ah. I said, well, #3 is barbiturates, like Xanax. He goes, I love Xanax. So he put his glass back in.
He just needs an estrogen blocker, and he can just use that tap water as his prescription.
So there was 19 pharmaceuticals. Yeah. But there's so many things. And I've tested in almost every major city, the pharmaceuticals. I've been lucky enough to have a client that wanted to do that. But there's pharmaceuticals, and there's all these other things, like chromium-6, like the Aaron Brockovich movie, which are carcinogens. And there's the forever plastics. And you're not seeing that in your water quality report yet. At some point, it's going to have to show up. But it's a problem, and we need to face it. And the way we designed our equipment was to face it.
Yeah, that's great. And I just want to say, for people out there, too, I've not yet found a good fluoride filter without a reverse osmosis-based process. Like some of them can work, but the shelf life for them to work is like weeks to maybe a month. And then they just stop working. That's the issue with a lot of filtration out there right now. And so, there's good water filters out there, but like you said, a Brita, like it was nice, they kind of trailblazed in the industry, but you don't want to use that and think you're drinking clean water.
And I tell people every time I see that they have one, I'm saying, I'm glad that you made an investment in your health.
Yes.
Because they want good water, and you know that. And when you see them drinking bottled water, you know that they're on the right path. They just need to be more educated.
And sometimes it does. There is a step ladder. Like people don't usually go from 0 to saying, oh, I'm going to get myself a whole house filtration-based system. Yeah. So, walk your clients up that ladder as well, and then they very well may make that investment. I like it as well, and I'm looking into it because I have noticeable difference with a shower filter, bath filter, water filter, but one whole house obviously can make that a lot easier for you. So I want to get a couple audience questions here. If you add a whole house filtration system, will the chemicals and bacteria still be inside the pipes from years of not being filtered?
Well, here's the beauty. Once you clean up water, you make it so much cleaner that the water itself cleans the pipes. So if they have a bacteria issue, or especially if it's a well, because some wells have bacteria issues, we put special filtration systems in to remove bacteria or to sterilize it. We can do both. We can flush the whole house with peroxide. I used to use bleach. That was the common thing, but it's a toxic chemical. So we use 7% nitrisol peroxide. We run it through the whole house. We detoxify all the pipes, which is one of the options you have. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to add to our equipment. And then you could do your own detoxification from time to time. And you run it through your pipes and you let it sit in there for several hours. The longer, the better. Sure. And then when you open the faucets, if there's anything that's grown or any biofilm or anything like that, it's going to come out your faucet. It's going to look pretty nasty. If you can take the screens off, it's better so you don't clog them up.
Got it. So you're flushing that first, the system. And hydrogen peroxide in its own right can be quite beneficial. So
and every time we do a whole house system, we flush the hot water heater too. Because hot water heaters, it says in your owner's manual that you're supposed to flush it every 6 months. No one does.
Nobody.
And but you should see the stuff that comes out of hot water heaters.
Wow. Okay. Good tip. Let's see what's up next. How well does your system deal with well water? Can we swap out an existing sodium-based softener for the one integrated in your system?
The one that we're showing out here today is basically designed for municipal water, because that's the majority of people. Like 90% of people we work with have municipal water. But I started out in the well water industry. And to deal with iron and sulfur and all these problems that well water have, even the pesticides you just talked about, the glyphosate and all that. So we pair the units as needed. And we normally do a testing, and we use a couple labs, but national laboratories, I don't know if you ever use those. They're watercheck.com. They're excellent. Yeah. And they will send a kit to anywhere in the country, and I mean, any state, because they're certified in all 50 states. And you just fill it up and send it back to them. And if you choose them to share the information with me, they will. And then I'll start building you a water filtration system, especially if you have a well.
So you'll customize it for the individual.
I'll customize it. And sometimes people get brand new well equipment, and a lot of it's good. Yeah. There's stuff that I can work with. It's a building block. I just need to add maybe one element, But with that test result, I'll know.
And people would just contact your office?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. What test do you recommend for testing our water? You just gave one. The one you recommended was National Laboratories?
National Laboratories. It's very easy. Watercheck.com. Great group of people. I'm not affiliated with them. I just refer them because I deal with all 50 states, and I end up dealing with one lab.
And they're tap score
really
well,
inexpensive. So. I've actually, they'll do a premium test kit, which is about 106 analytics for under $300. If you go to a local lab or a health department or something like that, you're going to spend over $1,000 for the same testing.
That's fantastic. And if someone wanted to run the more expensive pharmaceutical test, what's the
They'll do it as well.
They'll
send you a special pharmaceutical kit, and you just follow directions and fill it up. If you have any problems with directions, you're welcome to call us or them. We'll help you walk you through it because we do it all the time. And it's about $3,000 for a pharmaceutical. And when they do pharmaceutical, they do fragrances too. Because all the fragrances from laundry detergents and all that, which I didn't get into, 25% of most tap water, especially here in an area like Fort Lauderdale, is recycled wastewater. So that's how the pharmaceuticals are getting the water that I just talked about, because it's recycled.
So. I think I remember writing about these in the rain barrel effects. How is alkalized water different from Kangen water?
Okay.
Because you don't hear this every day. So.
Yeah, I don't hear this every day at all. I'm gonna make a confession. When I was dealing with my health problems, I had a friend of mine that was selling Kangen, of course, or a friend I made, and I bought one. I spent $4,000 because I wanted the ionization of the water. And then I realized when I was ionizing the water, whether it was a Kangen, a Life Ionizer, you can name any one of them, Jupiter, Titan, all of them, they're only as good as the water that they're using, right? So Our water filtration system uses a reverse osmosis as a pre-filter. And a lot of people always got a black eye because companies like Kangen gave it a black eye. They said, oh, it's just too pure, it demineralizes you and all that. You need those minerals. But when you're mineralizing something with an ionizer, you're mineralizing the minerals that are available in the water. And you don't know what they are. If you had a softener, there is no minerals. You're mineralizing sodium, right? So there's all these different things that are going on that this unit's trying to do, and it's trying to do something good for you. And it could if the water quality was good. But the problem is, most of the time, most of us live in areas, metropolitan areas, that you're using recycled water, and we're just intensifying. It's almost like a Trojan horse. Sure. We're adding more things to the water. So that's why I decided, okay, I needed to do all this extra filtration, and I said I could never sell this. I need to make something more compact. So when we made our system, they do both create alkaline water, but we realize alkaline is a byproduct because we're using magnesium to make hydrogen.
Yes. So, and one, you know, because I don't have an issue with Kangen water at all. Like, I don't want that to come up. It does what it says it's going to do. It creates alkaline-based water. A lot of people get the benefits from drinking a more alkaline-based water, but it's not what we're trying to say is it's not the same filtration as drinking filtered-based water and then becoming alkaline.
Yep.
And it's also the alkalizing process is different.
Exactly.
So that's it. And so again, nothing against them. And I think they've done actually a lot of good to just get the word out that we shouldn't be drinking acidic-based water.
They've done excellent at getting the word out.
So
because they sold me one.
Good. You did a great job. All right, we're going to keep it at that. So, Leo, we appreciate all the knowledge that you also brought us here today. I learned a lot myself. I know that if we could pop it up on the screen, I know there's some offers here at the event. I can't wait to actually speak with your team and Catherine a bit more about learning how a good whole house system might work for myself as well. So thank you once again.
Excellent.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Doc. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Thank you.